today's passage from Luke, once again we find Jesus in a border region, crossing boundaries and wandering where he probably shouldn't go, and healing people with whom he has no business interacting. This time, he runs into a group of lepers, that's right. And they're unclean, they're outcast, and the lepers approach him with a plea for healing. But they also keep their distance, trained by experience to expect little from those around them. Now, when we think about lepers, who would our lepers be today?
Homeless.
The homeless? People with Zika? People with Zika? Yeah. Joe? People with sicknesses. Yeah, so we do have people that are within our culture that feel like outcasts. And these were the kind of people that Jesus was interacting with. And so in response, what Jesus does, he doesn't say you're unclean, you go away. He instructs them to go and show themselves to the local priest, promising by implication that they will be made well. And as they travel, they are in fact healed. They're cleansed of this leprosy, this skin disease that they have. And then something surprising happens. One of them notices and turns back. And he falls at Jesus' feet in a posture of worship to give thanks to Jesus. Now, the other 9 did absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, they did exactly as they were told. And we presume that they too also experienced healing and received the blessing from the priest that was promised them. And perhaps once they had seen the priest, who in the time of Jesus, as I told the children, was the person that was designated to proclaim whether somebody was clean and no longer a potential danger to others, that they were so eager to get back to their families and their former lives that they simply didn't think to go back to Jesus, the source of their healing. In the process, though, Luke implies that they miss out on something beyond their physical healing that the one who turns back receives. The Samaritan, the outsider, the leper among lepers, recognized and affirmed that he not only saw that he was healed, but he returned to give thanks and was then blessed a second time. Now you might be thinking, what do you mean blessed a second time? He was healed just like the other 9, but Jesus concludes his exchange by inviting the man to rise and to go on his way, saying that his faith has not only made him physically well, but he is now indeed whole, and he is saved. And that's part of the complex meaning of the word that Jesus uses for healed, sozo. Jesus uses the same word for healing and being saved. So this man who returns not only receives the blessing of healing, as did the other 9, but also the blessing that comes from recognizing blessing, the blessing that is of wholeness and salvation. Have you ever noticed, friends, how powerful it is not only to receive blessing, but also to name it and to give thanks? Think about it. Maybe you're at a special meal with a friend or families, and it's one of those meals prepared with love and served and eaten very deliberately, where time just seems to stop for a moment, and you're all caught up and bound together by that nearly unfathomable sense of community and joy. And then you lean over and you say to one another, or maybe you raise your glass in a toast and say, this is great. This time, this meal, all of you here, thank you. And in seeing and giving thanks, the original blessing is somehow multiplied. You've been blessed a second time. Or maybe you were at the ocean, or the Grand Canyon, or you were horseback riding, or at Sugarloaf Mountain, or some other wonderful spot, taking in the beauty of the day. And if you're with someone, you lean over to them and say, this is so beautiful. I'm so glad you're here with me to share it. And again, blessing is multiplied. And gratitude and thanksgiving are like that. They spring from perception, our ability to recognize blessing, and articulation, giving expression, no matter how inadequate it may seem at the time, of our gratitude for that blessing. And every time that these two are combined, perception and articulation, sight and word, giving thanks actually grants that second blessing. And you think that that would be obvious to all of us here. But how often are we like the other 9 who lose out on this second blessing by failing, as the Apostle Paul says, to thank God always and for everything? You see, when we stop to give thanks, something happens. Part of the offering we make is for our sake. There's something restorative about giving thanks, just as we see the leper made whole. And recent scientific research actually confirms this. Robert Emmons, he's a PhD and a professor of psychology at the University of California, Davis, and one of the world's leading scientific experts on gratitude, has studied this phenomenon and shares the results of his study in his book, Thanks, How the New Science of Gratitude Can Make You Happier. And his research suggests that gratitude makes us appreciate the value of something. And when we appreciate the value of something, we extract more benefits from it. We're less likely to take it for granted. And Dr. Emmons also found that grateful people are more stress resistant. And there's a number of studies showing that in the face of serious trauma, adversity, and suffering, if people have a grateful disposition, some actually recover more quickly. And gratitude gives people a perspective from which they can reinterpret negative life events and helps guard against post-traumatic stress and lasting anxiety. He also found that grateful people have a higher sense of self-worth, because when you're grateful, you have the sense that someone else is looking out for you. Someone else has provided for your well-being. You have value. In fact, I try to start my day before my feet even hit the floor by just thanking God for the start of a new day and for one or two things. And then I end my day that way. And it shapes how you look at the world. Now, I don't pretend to be naive, in fact, about a life of gratitude is easy, because it's not necessarily easy. It does take practice. And that is what our life as followers of Jesus is all about. It is the belief that God is at work in and through Christ, who abides in all aspects of our lives. Mother Teresa talked about how grateful she was to the people that she was actually helping, the sick and dying in the slums of Calcutta, because they enabled her to grow and deepen her spirituality. It helped her cultivate this sense of gratitude. And I think finally, with gratitude comes the realization that we get more than we deserve. And this goes against the common message in our contemporary culture that we deserve the good fortune that comes our way, that we're entitled to it. But if you deserve everything, if you're entitled to everything, it makes it a whole lot harder to be grateful for anything. Gratitude draws us out of ourselves and joins us to something larger. And the Samaritan leper, he knew this. And he returned to this Jewish rabbi, to a sworn enemy, to say thank you. And realized in that moment that he was more than a Samaritan, more than a leper, and more than a healed leper. He was a beloved child of God, whole and accepted and beautiful. And that's what the 9 missed. They missed out on that which unlocks the fullness of life, gratitude. You know, our world, brothers and sisters, is filled with troubles, but it is also filled with blessing. I see it in all of you here, families and friends that care for each other, colleagues that share the burden of work, like I've seen as we prepare for this rummage sale. School teachers who care about their pupils, like Melissa Nagy, a counselor at our high school, or Peg Arnold at the middle school, and our own Amy Huffnagel at Poolsville Elementary. And students like Jillian and Chloe and Rachel, and all of you here this morning, eager to learn It's remarkable, and I'm grateful for that. And then look at our country. Even as messed up as things might seem right now, we have a form of government that is far from perfect, yet it strives to honor its citizens by conveying a level of freedom and opportunity rarely imagined. And then we have agencies like Episcopal Relief, Food for the Poor, that tend the afflicted. And we have service people like Randy Davis's son, Sean, and all those young men and women that we pray for each week who are willing to put their lives on the line at home and abroad. And good neighbors like those who serve at WUMCO and Helping Hands and our lunch ministry, who support one another, feed one another. And this community of faith filled with the likes of you and me, where I believe all are welcome, where God's love heals and forgives those places we may least want to be seen and most need to be touched. And last but not least, I am grateful for a meal of blessing that we serve at this table every week, served to anyone who would come. And soon we're going to begin a season of stewardship, a season of gratitude. And I invite you to express your gratitude not only with words, but with actions. In a world filled with blame and accusation, making many among us feel like lepers, I encourage you to remember the 10th leper and go forth into the world as heralds of healing and blessing and bearers of gratitude.